This video is brought to you by Patreon. By signing up on the Phat Pack Magic Patreon, you get early access to all content, as well as grab bags of valuable cards and amazing mats exclusive to patrons. You can help keep coverage for Paper Magic alive by showing your support on the Phat Pack Magic Patreon today. Hello guys, and welcome back to Phat Pack Magic. We're here at Darkside Games for their FNM Pioneer event, and it's round 1, and we're starting in. Now on the left is Izzet Pepper playing Izzet Phoenix, and on the right is Zach Summer playing Mono Black Aggro. And Mono Black Aggro has made a few changes since Theros came out, the new Theros set, and I'm pretty excited to see what innovations Zach has made in his deck. Now he's starting off with a turn 1 into a Dread Wanderer, a great 1-drop, and a little bit of recursion. Abe, on the other hand, is throwing down a Steam Vents tapped. Now Zach's follow-up is going to be a swing at Abe, bringing him down to 18. And the question is, does he want to pop off that Thoughtseize? Instead, he's going to go for a Scrapheap Scrounger and putting 5 power on the board, and Abe needs a quick answer. A Thing in the Ice is going to come in, and that goes pretty well with all the spells that Abe's deck is going to be doing. Unfortunately, it looks like a Fatal Push is going to push it out of the way. Zach animates the Mutavault, and he's crashing in for 7 damage and bringing Abe down to 11. Now it's turn 3, and Abe needs some presence on the board to stop this huge onslaught that Zach has coming at his face. But it looks like Zach is just able to keep the pressure coming. And here's a cast down, once again blowing away that Thing in the Ice and crashing in for another 7 damage, and Abe is looking for options. But the door for Abe to be able to sneak in and come back in this game is quickly closing. Zach's curve was so on point, and he had the answers for everything that Abe was able to put down, but that's how these aggro decks want to operate. They don't want to be able to really interact, they just want to use you as a body punching bag, and that's what Zach was able to do as he takes this Game 1 win away from Abe. Now let's see if he can do it in Game 2. And we are going on to Game 2 right now, and Zach's Game 1 was just an amazing haymaker. It seemed like he had everything on curve, all the answers at all the right times, and Izzet Phoenix just couldn't get through there. But let's see if Abe can do better in Game 2. And by the way, I love these Cowboy Bebop sleeves. Those are great choice on your part, Abe, if you're hearing this. And it looks like Zach is going to go down a card, and so is Abe. And Abe's going to be starting off. However, Zach is with a Leyline of the Void in his opener, and playing out a turn 1 2-1, this Leyline of the Void could spell a lot of trouble for Abe, whose whole game plan is basically revolving around the graveyard, and that could be a big crimp in his plans on a Game 2 when he desperately needs the win to stay in this thing. Now, it looks like he doesn't have a lot of great choices, but an Opt and a Shock are going to exile, which isn't great for Abe, and neither is getting pelted for 2 in the face from that gnarled Scarhide, and Zach has to follow up with the Knight of the Ebon Legion, but no second land. This could be the opening that Abe is looking for. He needs some way to start generating advantage, and here's the Royal Scions, which is going to be able to loot for him, but more importantly, it's going to be a target for Zach. Meaning that, he wouldn't be able to get in that life damage that he needs, and it also tempers the Knight of the Ebon Legion, meaning that if he swings at the Royal Scions rather than at Abe's face, the Knight isn't going to get a +1/+1 counter. So he's got to get in there, 3 damage at the Royal Scions, and here is one of the interesting innovations that come from Theros. It's Ephemia, the Cacophony. Now, when those gnarled Scarhides die, she can start exiling them and make 2/2 zombie tokens, providing a little bit more, not just utility, but a little bit more reach for the Mono Black deck. And the fact she's a 2/1 fly, that's not too bad either. So the Royal Scions pumping up, being able to loot for Abe, and probably be another Fog against Zach's follow-up play. So here's a land, and Abe has got a few cards in hand, but it looks like one is Crackling Drake, and he's questioning if now is the time to fire that off. Now, Crackling Drake is pretty important here, even against Leyline of the Void, because it counts all the instants and sorceries in the graveyard and in exile, which is really important and might be able to get him out from underneath that Leyline of the Void with just a big stomper. So here's a third land for Zach, and it looks like the whole party is coming in, crashing in at the Royal Scions. Now, unfortunately, Abe could try and save the Scions with a quick removal spell if he had one. But it looks like a Bone Crusher Giant is going to be the play, and it's going to get rid of that Ephemia. And this is going to force Zach to pump the Knight to be able to kill off that Royal Scions, acting as a time walk for Abe. But the Royal Scions is finally off the field, and now Abe can start maybe making a comeback. Now he's drawn a Shock, which is pretty okay. But it looks like he's going to fire that off now. And if you didn't catch that, that's a foil Shock. That's a very pretty Shock. And oh yeah, he played a Bone Crusher Giant, but I'm still in awe of this incredibly beautiful Shock that Abe has played. And it's not the first foil one, but man, that looks great. So Zach is swinging in with the Gnarled Scourhide. Abe blocks with the Giant, and a Disfigure is going to kill off the Giant and also deal 2 damage to Zach. But Zach seems okay with this because he's going to be able to start exiling stuff with his Ephemia and making 2/2 zombies. It looks like Abe really needs a land drop here. But a Crackling Drake is going to come down and draw him a card and serve as a very good blocker because Abe has quite a few instants and sorceries, and it looks like about 5. Now Zach has a few cards. He's got a Castle Lockpoint that can be live. But the question is, does he want to start really pumping out that kind of stuff just yet? So he's crashing in. He blocks the Ephemia. Abe's going to take 2 from the zombie. But this is going to turn on Fatal Push and knock the Crackling Drake out of the reach. And Zach follows it up with the Knight of the Ebon Legion. So Abe has finally found his 5th land, and I spy a Glorybringer. And here it comes down. Big ol' from Amonkhet Glorybringer, exerting itself to toast up that Knight of the Ebon Legion while dealing 4 damage to Zach, bringing him down to 14. And Zach looks like he's about out of gas. He animates the Mutavault, or decides on whether or not he wants to animate the Mutavault. Now, the thing is, Glorybringer is going to remain tapped for another turn, so Zach needs to start trying to raise, and here comes 4 damage at 8, bringing him down to 12. And Zach is holding on to a Fatal Push. Here's a 6th land for Abe. I think he's fine to not draw any more lands for the remainder of the game. He's pretty okay with this right now. Fortunately, that Glorybringer being tapped down, and while it gets a lot of good advantage, it's not great when it's tapped. He needs another spiky card. But there's a Lightning Axe in hand, and here comes Izzet Phoenix for the rare mana cost of 4 coming in, and it's going to start crashing in for 3. It brings Zach down to 11. And Zach draws another land. Zach has been kind of on the back foot for most of this game, having most of his threats answered pretty handily. Here he comes in for 4 more damage. He has no choice but to try and raise. This brings Abe down to 8. But Abe's going to be able to crash in for 7 damage next turn. Top of that, looks like he's drawn a Fiery Temper. Now, I don't think Abe is too worried about that 2/2 zombie token, so he's not going to exert. Instead, he's just going to deal 7 damage, bringing Zach down to 4. And I think that might have been... Oh, wow. Here's Chandra, Torch of Defiance, and she's going to use her +1 And rather than drawing, Abe's just going to shoot Zach in the face for 2. And he also has a fiery temper if he really just wanted to get lethal in there. And well, game 2 is going to go to Abe, and that is one heck of a game. Abe being able to play through and win against a turn 0 Leyline of the Void. That's impressive. His deck normally relies completely off the graveyard, but he was able to push through, and wow, let's see if he can do it again in game 3. And here we are on to game 3. It's tied 1-1. And if I'm in Zach's place here, I'm a little bit stunned, just to be honest. Because game 1 was a complete blowout. I had completely won, my opponent overwhelmed him. And game 2, I had my clutch sideboard card in the opener. And it should have just completely shut out the game and prevented Abe from doing anything in the graveyard. But his deck was just able to play out and win. So Zach has got to be on an aggressive pace here. And here we go. Turn 1, Knight of the Even Legion, and passing back to Abe, who's only got a Spire Bluff Canal to follow it up with. Crashing in for 1, Abe goes down to 19, and the question is, does Zach have that amazing turn 2 follow-up? I wouldn't say amazing, but this is pretty interesting of a sideboard card. Well, it may be a main board, but it's pay 1 life, sacrifice it, discard a card, and destroy target creature. However, it's an enchantment, so it might get a little bit of advantage off Ephemeria. However, here's a strategic planning, putting a Phoenix into the yard immediately, and Abe passes the turn back. Zach needs to get some damage here, but here's a pump, and crashing in for 4. This is going to bring Abe down to 15, and land a +1/+1 counter on that Knight. Now the question is if Abe can play through not only Zach's offenses, but his defensive spells as well. And if Zach gets a Ephemeria, that could be problematic. So here's Abe, starting off his combo with a Chart a Course, drawing 2 cards, hoping to discard something. Well, a land is okay, but he'd probably wish to discard a Phoenix instead. He's got a few cards in hand. He's got a Lightning Axe, but a Lightning Axe on that Knight might just be overkill. But he's going to do it. 5 damage to the Knight of the Even Legion and pass the turn back. But here's Ephemia, the Cacophony. And she's a 2/1 flyer, but it's that ability that's going to make her really strong. And she's already got a few enchantments lined up with one of that Sinister Concoction. And it looks like there's another one hanging out in Zach's hand. So strategic planning is going to go off, and it does find a pretty useful spell, but it looks like he's going to dump the Giant in favor of an Opt. And the Opt will be spell number 2, and the question is if he's going to use that Shock and try and get spell number 3, or if he's just going to let the counter roll over. Nope. Shock comes down, and it's that very gorgeous Shock. Abe goes to combat, swings in, but Fatal Push is going to shove it right back into the graveyard because a permanent left play from Zach's side of the field. And here's another Sinister Concoction, and Abe gets the turn back. Abe taking a read over this card. And unfortunately, Ephemia is in the yard at the moment, meaning that she's not going to be able to start really utilizing those. However, Zach also has a Kalitas hanging out in his hand, but he doesn't have a 4th land to use it. So here's another land with another Chart a Course. It's going to draw Abe 2 cards, ditching a land. Only 1 Phoenix so far, and look at all of his graveyard that he's gone through. And here's an Izzet Charm. Can he find another Phoenix? No. And he's going to discard an Izzet Charm to the first Izzet Charm. And Shock, just because. This is going to bring Zach down just a little bit, down to 18. And now that Phoenix is going to start rushing in there. The question is, does Zach care? And it looks like just a little bit. He's going to be discarding a Cast Down. And I guess just to get more stuff into the yard. And it seems like that card could be pretty useful for all the 1-drops that Zach has in the Mono Black deck that just recur. And there's the 4th land, and here comes Kalidas, a 3/4, and that's going to be a big hamper in Abe's plan if the Phoenix ever hits the graveyard from play. So the question is Abe going to have to really blow out that Kalidas, spending 2 cards to deal with 1? And it looks like Zach's also drawn a Rankle. So he's crashing in. This is going to gain Zach 3 life and put Abe down to 12. But I think he'd be fine just kind of hanging back. He doesn't really have to do much here. And it looks like Abe is almost out of gas. But Zach is going to be able to start drawing cards with that Castle Locthwain. And with Kalidas in play, he's going to be able to start gaining life as well and maybe put Abe out of reach. But a Crackling Drake is going to come down. Abe's going to draw a card off of it. And a pretty significant card as well. That's a Lightning Axe. And Kalidas only has 4 toughness. So here comes that Sinister Concoction, discarding a Rankled, revealing a land off the top. He's going to lose 1 life. And in response, Abe is going to Lightning Axe the Kalidas and prevent Kalidas from getting a 2/2 zombie token. The question is that 2/2 zombie token worth it? And it looks like it is. Because that Murderous Rider is going to come down, kill off the Crackling Drake, and he's going to get that zombie token. The Lightning Axe is going to resolve, and Zach is down to a Murderous Rider and a zombie. But those Castle Locthwains, they can do some damage. And Abe is only 5 more hits with that zombie away because he's at 10 now from a zombie strike. And Zach plays out that Murderous Rider. But it looks like Abe's got another Crackling Drake in the wings. Comes down, drawing him a card. He's got a few spells to start putting up the damage. Zach is not in a great place right now, but he's drawn a Fatal Push. And he's been able to bait Abe every other time. And right now, that Crackling Drake is going to be a 12/12. He says, I'm going to block the Murderous Rider. Take 2. Abe goes down to 8. Zach goes up to 19. Murderous Rider gets tucked under, and it turns on Fatal Push, killing off that Crackling Drake. But I don't blame Abe for making that block there, because he can't afford to take 4 hits, because Zach's deck can just start going out from underneath him. Opt comes in. Abe draws a card. It's another Opt. That's fine. Here's another Opt. That's 2 spells. This one's going to get tucked underneath. I mean, he can go for the 3rd one, but 3 spells for a single Phoenix. There's got to be another Phoenix in his future. It's Royal Silence, and there it is. Another Phoenix that's going to hit the bin. And that is 3 spells. Abe goes to combat, recurring 2 of the Phoenixes. They're crashing in for 6 damage, bringing Zach down to 13. He's going to use a castle to draw a card and lose 1 life in the exchange, going down to 12. He needs to find an answer, and fast, because those Phoenixes are on a 2-turn clock, and that zombie might be too slow. Abe just kind of laying out his graveyard. All the pretty foils for us. I mean, Zach has to swing in there. It's not like he's going to be able to block a... Nope, the Shock is going to come down, killing off the zombie token. And Ephemia is going to come in, and she's going to start being able to exile stuff and make zombies as well. So, here comes... and he's playing a Gnarled Scarhide as well. So, Abe might be under a bit of pressure here. But it looks like he's drawn a Glorybringer. But he could also play out that Royal Scions. I don't think he wants to take a chance. I think Glorybringer is the correct play here. 5 mana for a removal spell and 4 damage. Glorybringer shoots away the Ephemia before she can block a Phoenix. And this is going to bring Zach all the way down to 2 life. 10 damage in 1 swing. Zach has one turn left. He draws. I don't think he's got it. It's a Mutavault. Just a little too late. But he's going to go for it anyways. Drawing a single card off that Castle Lockthwain. And the match win is going to go to Abe, piloting those Phoenixes and those Glorybringers to victory. That's going to be it for us this time on Phat Pack Magic. Stay tuned because we've got more Pioneer events coming, so make sure you click that notification bell, that way you're always up to date whenever I upload a new video. Tap that subscribe button to be on top of all my latest vids, and hit that like button, not just for me, but for my players too. We also got really cool behind the scenes footage uploaded on Instagram, and if you like this content and you want to support it, check us out on Patreon. We have all kinds of tiers for all kinds of rewards, like Unstable Basic Lands, signed by me, and these amazing one-of-a-kind playmats featuring the Power 9. And these mats are exclusive only to the Phat Pack Magic Patreon tiers. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and may all your packs be fat.